something about 2 minutes ago when I said, well, can you reflect back on dating sites or whatever and recollect women saying, like, I'm looking for a self-aware man, a man who's tuned in, who's emotionally grounded, and your first response is like, no, not really. It didn't really, and it's because it doesn't mean anything to the logical processor,
right?
To the point to where women use these phrases all the time. I could go onto a dating site right now, and within less than 5 minutes, I'll find a girl's post, and it'll say, I'm looking for a self-aware man, a man who's grounded, a man who's internally, connected, blah, or just connected, right? And
right.
They use words like, I'm looking for a connection. Ladies, I'm going to tell you right now. Now, so we're doing this for both men and women. So, ladies, I'm going to tell you right now, you're using a language that she's like, what the hell is she talking about? It's not even to the point of that. He just doesn't even acknowledge those words. Does that make sense, Karl?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, we're speaking different languages and we perceive reality so differently. And so, before your course, a lot of stuff that women were saying, like, I wasn't seeing it. And then after your course, all I see is that when I talk to women. Yeah.
Okay. So go from there. Now, so what I mean is, do you remember that conversation we had when we were talking about, because I say it in the course all the time, and my clients look at me like, what are you talking about? In the beginning, until they learn the language. So when you go to a grocery store or you're at a coffee shop and you hear a husband and wife talking, what happens?
I hear she's saying one thing and he's saying another thing, and they're both speaking English, and it sounds like they're talking about the same thing, but I can hear that they're actually saying totally different things, and they're nodding like they think they understand each other, but I can see that it's at some point when the meaning of the communication, when the meaning of the communication manifests, somebody's going to be upset.
All right, let me say it in the scientific way, okay? Here's what's going on. There's the left brain processor, which is the linear external processor. It goes in a line. Linear means line, L-I-N-E-A-R, linear. It's a fluid way of saying it goes in a line. It's the external brain, right? And it's narrow. And it's very much like the IBM processor, especially the older one. The right brain is like the Apple computer. It can multitask. You can have multi-windows open. You can have the music going, watching YouTube. You can be typing something and being on Facebook. So you can do all these multitasking things like women do. It's also the internal processor. It's the expansive way of communicating and talking. It's the big picture language versus the male is about the little tiny pinpoint. That's why men always say get to the point. So what I'm trying to say is this. When she shifts over to the right brain, because women can go left and right, because she has more nerves in the corpus callosum, which connect the left hemisphere to the right. So she has more neurological connections. So she can go logical, then emotional, spiritual. So the left brain is the logical, linear. It's about rules, structure, and organization. So it's the logical processor. It's good at math, business, and science. And remember, women are both. So then she can flip over here, and she'll be in the right brain processor, which is the emotional, creative, spiritual processor. It's about colors. It's about slight differences in colors and shades and flavors and smells and sensing things. Whereas when a man's in his left brain, he's detuned from his 5 senses. This is the 5 senses processor. So here's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to get to the point. When a woman is in her right brain, she says something out of her right brain, which means this over here. And then he'll take it and process it through the linear logical processor, and it changes the meaning to these same words. It changes them. Now, he's hearing B when she's actually saying A. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that what you're hearing? Like, so in other words, like I'll use myself as an example. I'll be in a grocery store and I'll be in line and I'll be hearing like this husband and wife. They're just kind of like on edge and like, I thought we talked about this last night. And they'll talk and talk and talk. And I'm like, wow, she's saying this, but his left brain is processing it this way, and he's now hearing the opposite of what she's saying. And then I'm thinking later on tonight, because it had something to do with what was going to happen later, she's going to be pissed off. But the problem is, he really believes he's understanding her. Now, he's not doing anything wrong. It's just he's using the wrong processor technically. And so this is one of the biggest challenges between men and women is just freaking communicating on the same page. And let me say this real quick. Have you noticed that women will say, "Hey, come on, keep up," or I'm on a different page, or I've moved on from that. I remember before I learned this stuff, I'm like, we're not on the same page. Like, what are you talking about? We're talking about blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, well, I've moved on. In other words, she's moved over to her indirect processor. Now, see, because when she's in her left brain, A means A. She says A and it means A. And his left brain understands that. So you're on the same page. But when she shifts over to here, the right brain says A, but it doesn't mean A. It means something deeper.
Right.
Carl?
Yeah, and I'm sure every guy has the experience where you're talking to a girl and suddenly she's talking about something else. And you're like, wait, are you talking about this thing? And she's like, oh, yeah, sorry, I just, I skipped ahead, or
I moved on.
I mean, even with my mother, that happens. And, at the time, I thought, okay, just chicks are weird, but I think when they're with each other, they can just keep up because they're both in the right brain and they can just flick through things and have double meanings and everybody can be on the same page. But if you're not in your right brain when they're talking, then you're lost and you're several steps behind.
Yeah, it's just like the IBM computer and the Apple computer. If they speak two different languages, but more importantly is the processors they process completely differently. And so if you try to connect those two, they won't communicate well unless you have some kind of translator, which ultimately is what my course is about. Because ultimately what I do, ladies, is I teach men how to open up to the right brain and speak the internal, mentally stimulating, and emotionally fulfilling language for romance, love, and just clarity in everyday communication. So that's the good news for women, so you can get your meaningful, emotionally fulfilling language. And that's a phrase that's foreign to men. They're like, mentally stimulating, emotionally fulfilling, internal what? What are you talking about?
Right.
Karl G, Did you have that problem in the beginning of my course, or were you like, okay, I'll just go along with this for a while?
Pretty much. It was like, what's he saying? Like, why is he saying those words? And it doesn't mean anything. But,
right.
Yeah, but for women, that stuff is really meaningful. And, I have a concrete example from last weekend.
Uh-huh.
Just about how, men and women, we communicate differently and we have different mating strategies and we have different ways of relating to the world. And it's not that one is better than the other, and we both misunderstand each other a lot.
Right.
So this example is perfect.
Okay.
So I was at a friend's housewarming party, and I think I was waiting for some food to arrive or something, and my friends, I walked past a group of friends. It's the two guys and a girl, and they're talking, and the girl calls me into the conversation. She's like, hey, Karl G, do you think that cellulite on a girl is sometimes sexy? And I was like, what? And she said, well, this guy and this guy, they said that no way, that cellulite on a girl it's not sexy. But, I think it could be sexy. And, I know that you're a pretty open-minded guy. Like, it's sexy, right? And I was like, man, I feel really bad. I'm going to have to throw her under the bus. Right. No, it's not sexy. And then she looked a bit bummed out, and I was like, yeah, sorry about that. I got to go find my food. And I didn't think anything else of it.
All right.
But then when I was going home, I was like, oh, I know why she thinks that. And, what I came up with was that, women, when they're looking for their mating system, from what I've learned from you anyway, their mating system, when they're looking at guys, they're looking at a guy that can protect them and will, has survivability, will help her kids live. And so that guy is going to have some life experience. He's going to have some gray hairs and some scars, and he's going to be grounded and aware. And so women think that's hot, and so women are like, men must want that too. And so this girl was like, oh, so a chick with some cellulite, she's got, you know, some what they call muffin, she's got a muffin top, and, you know, she's looking a little bit beat up. Like, that chick obviously has some experience in life, so that must be hot, right?
Right.
And guys are, you know, that's not how our mating system works, and I'll let you run on that in a second.
Yeah, but, I think what Carl's saying, now, do you want me to take over now, or do you have one more thing?
Yeah, hit it, man.
All right, so he's saying it in a very rough way. So what I taught him in the course, what I teach in the course, is that our mating systems have two completely different purposes. So I'll go over that, and then we'll wrap around. And remind me if I don't quite get there, but I'll wrap around to what Karl was saying about why she thought men would be attracted to that. So, and this is what we as men and women do. A man is wired a certain way, linearly, and his mating system's wired a certain way. So he thinks, well, this will turn her on. And I'm like, no, that actually irritates and pisses women off. And a lot of guys, and what happens is by the time you're 18, 20 years old, you're afraid to even talk to a woman. She's like, shit, every time I talk to her or try to pick up on a girl, they get mad. And it's like, you get irritated. It's like, because you're doing the male linear thing. And right now, guys, ladies, I know you know what I'm talking about. You know, guys lean forward and they do this linear thing. Their eyeballs are narrow and laser beams. And